Welcome back. I'm talking with Neil Sanders, who has researched mind control, and today we're particularly talking about psychotronics, which is small devices fitted inside the brain which can be controlled remotely and provide two-way communications and control of somebody's mind.
Yeah.
And this stuff exists, folks. This article is written by Dr. Rauni Kilda, who's the ex-Chief Medical Officer of Finland, and I'm just going to read a few extracts from it. She says the technology links the brain of people via implanted microchips to satellites controlled by ground-based supercomputers. They can also be inserted intravenously. It is now almost impossible to detect or remove them. Implanted human beings can be followed anywhere. The brain functions can be remotely monitored by supercomputers and even altered through the changing of frequencies.
Yeah.
Now, just the frequencies, Neil. I mean,
I don't understand the practical terms, but by changing the frequencies, what it means is essentially you're going to hit the brain with a new EEG pattern, which will cause a response. So essentially, if you want to hit them with the pattern that causes white hot rage, bang, and they'll feel it. You're going to make them feel desolate, bang, and they'll feel it. Do you know what I mean?
All right. Now, we've got a 5 micromillimeter microchip, which is the diameter of the strand of a human hair. This is the size of the things we're talking about.
Go on the internet and type in ant holding microchip, and you'll see, like, I mean, this is old, and this is in the public view, but there's a picture of an ant holding a microchip in its mandibles.
According to Dr. Kilda, this tiny microchip is placed into the optical nerve of the eye. It draws neural impulses from the brain that embody the experiences, smells, sights, and voice of the implanted person. Mm-hmm. So you think that that device can then send back to some supercomputer, it's some secret NSA base that could be completely monitored and so on.
I mean, the thing of that's the point. The point of monitoring it is to see what your base levels are, so that basically you then can recreate that in such a way that the brain doesn't know that it's an outside influence.
Yeah. Now you can see the motivation for the intelligence agencies wanting to do this.
Oh, yeah.
If they want to almost control people remotely, and it's anyone's guess as to how much control they have over people, and who is indeed implanted. Now let's come on to control of people who aren't implanted.
Yeah. Well, this is what's
actually, before we go on to that, Neil, I just want to. I've had people contact me who claim to be what they use the word their targets, who think they may have been implanted and are being controlled. Now, I'm led to believe that the CIA have put out a directive to psychiatrists that any person who comes to them and says, "I think I'm being controlled by, I don't know what, by noises in my head or whatever," they're told to diagnose them as being schizophrenic.
Yeah.
And just tell us briefly about that, Neil, about the fact that...
As far as I remember, and I may have got this wrong, but the new handbook for psychological disorders or whatever, aside from a cracking new one, which is basically anti-authoritarianism, is now symptomatic of a mental disorder. But basically, in that they'll say that talking about having an outside influence affecting your personality, so this is a classic symptom of schizophrenia, and so it allows for dismissal of anybody that comes forward to it. What's quite interesting about it is essentially, in a way, they're right, because what you do by mind control, schizophrenia is when the ego, you've got the id, the superego, and the ego. The ego comprises of your personality, the id's your animal instincts, and this is your sort of societal pressures. The ego, in a schizophrenic state, splits, and that's why it's called a schism, or a schizoid state. Now, to induce an alter, which is, a mind-controlled personality, we utilise trauma or whatever to make that happen, to break the mind into a mouldable character and stuff like that. So in some sense, they're correct. This is how you actually evoke a second personality or whatever. And this is why when you see it in Hollywood films, they'll do it in such a really ham-fisted way, like, oh, you broke into the good guy and the evil guy or something. But it's essentially the same thing. Bang, and you split the personality down. It's a protective method of the brain.
I mean, just to make a comment on psychiatry, for me, the science of psychiatry is no more science than sociology or...
No,
it's an extremely weak science, in my opinion. It's not like the other medical sciences, like...
No, it doesn't mean that it's, it's not good. It's a tool. Okay, even some psychiatrists, R.D. Lang, would tell you that basically that insanity is perfectly normal. It's a rational reaction to an insane world. It's how psychology can be utilised. Yeah, no, it's not quantifiable, but we can sort of see some results.
I've been contacted by a woman who's convinced that she's possibly been implanted and has all these weird things going on in her head. And as you say, if she's actually been diagnosed as being a schizophrenic,
Well,
and she claims that that's the intention. Anyone who is in one of the, who's perhaps part of an experimental program and has been implanted or being controlled, that they're deliberately diagnosed with this so that their credibility is then just goes down the
It's a perception management mass mind control project. What we do is anybody that comes to us with something that could be dangerous, we dismiss them outright and make them look like an idiot. And you're not so stupid that you agree with an idiot, are you?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, it's the classic phrase, he hears voices in his head. And that's what they try and do.
Yeah.
And also, there are various forums on the internet which provide support for these alleged targets, people who claim to have been targeted. But, I mean, I've had information that these forums are just completely infiltrated by debunkers and people trying to throw off the real.
It's controlled response, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? If you set up the organisation that mops up these people, then you can.
You set up the support group for targets, which I think is possibly what's happening.
Yeah, a similar scenario goes on with the False Memory Foundation, okay, which is set up by Martin Orne and Jolly West, okay, both MK Ultra doctors. But that foundation exists so that anyone that comes forward with memories of sexual abuse, satanic sexual ritual abuse, MK Ultra style abuse, they can immediately say, that's not a real memory. I'm terribly sorry, but that's not real.
Now, in one of Miles Johnson's videos, he scanned Dave Marrow.
Yeah.
Remember the Dave Marrow video?
In his back,
they were able to detect waves of certain frequencies coming out of Dave Marrow's body on his back. He allegedly had some in his back. So do you think they're easy to detect, these things? I mean, do we need to go to David Cameron and give him a quick scan?
It's difficult to know because essentially, calcium is a metal, isn't it? So I'm pretty sure that we can make a calcium chip now. How are you going to notice that against people?
Right. So you think they may be so advanced now that they're undetectable. But if they're given off...
Well, the other thing is, though, how are you going to go and get it detected unless you go into a sort of private... I'd suggest that people look at the instance of Robert Naisland, who was in Sweden, and basically kept going to different doctors and kept going to different people to try and get x-rays and try and get these things removed. And every time he did, at the very last minute, the doctor was changed, and after the operation, he suddenly wound up that he's got extra chips in his head.
Right.
So, But what we were talking about, the fact that people hearing voices in their head, there are weapons that make that happen. I mean, this started again.
That don't require an implant, though.
Don't require an implant
Right,
at all.
so we'll just come on to that. What we've spoken about so far is they've taken someone, they've fiddled with them, they've put things in their head, and then, we've now got, we're doing all sorts to you remotely. But microwaves or... they'll use microwaves and they'll put ELF on top of a microwave as a carrier. These can affect the mind as well, where you haven't even been touched or in any way. They can use radio waves to control people. Tell us about that.
In 1962, Alan Frey, he's one of the first people that sort of discovered this. It's called the Frey auditory effect. And what he found is that basically people that were stood next to heavy radar functions or satellite or whatever in the army, they were hearing like banging noises and hissing and clicking and stuff like that, and then people that I would hear it, you wouldn't hear it, and this is caused by microwaves. What Alan Frey was
they were sitting next to the radar all day.
So they're hearing this bang, 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 hiss, 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 and no one else can hear it because it's affecting they sort of actually found that it was affecting the blood-brain barrier. Alan Frey discovered that if you sort of pump this signal really high, you can kill somebody at a distance by causing them the hemorrhage through the brain.
So, a microwave.
Yeah, absolutely. It basically causes a disintegration of the blood-brain barrier. By application of this, what he was able to do was first just make sort of random noises, bangs, clicks, hisses. Then he was able to basically make people feel as if they were having the brain shaken or something, or having their entire body shaken or whatever. In the end, basically, him and a bloke called Joseph C. Sharp managed to get the experiment to the point where they could transmit words via these carriers, these microwave frequency carriers. One of them would stand at one end of a football field or whatever, and they would audibly hear it, and they would actually, you know, be able
and
to...
they weren't fitted with any technology in
No,
their
not
head.
at all. And this is essentially the first steps into what would be called synthetic telepathy. Now, we spoke before about Smirnoff, Igor Smirnoff. He was able to basically put voices into people's head. Michael Persinger was doing the similar thing in America at Laurentian University. But this is not hidden. This is an application, a military publication called the US Air Force New World Vistas Air and Space Power for the 21st Century. And in it, they say, it would appear to be possible to create high-fidelity speech in the human body, raising the possibility of covert suggestion and psychological direction. When a high-power microwave pulse in the gigahertz range strikes the human body, a very small temperature perturbation occurs, and this is associated with a sudden expansion of the slightly heated tissue. This expansion is fast enough to produce an acoustic wave. If a pulse stream is used, it should be possible to create an internal acoustic field in the 5 to 15 kHz range, which is audible. Thus, it may be possible to talk to selected adversaries in a fashion that would be most disturbing to them.
So just to expand on that, your audible frequencies are in this kind of 5 to 15 kilohertz range, but your microwaves are much higher than that, so that it's carrying another wave on top of that
which
wave,
will then
which somehow is then transmitted in the tissue to make you hear that sound.
Yeah.
All right. Now, what about, I mean, I've seen microwave weapons where you basically have a big dish and it's beaming something.
Like the Sage thing at Montauk and stuff like that.
Yeah, the Montauk Island and all of that. I mean, we haven't got time to go into that today, but you can talk about the Iraq War, because tell us about the alleged microwave weapon that was used against the Iraqi troops.
Well, it's called S-Quad, or Silent Sound, or Squad sometimes it's called, and it's a genuine thing. It's not made up. We had lots of people coming. Well, after the war, we had reports of why are these people that were basically embedded in concrete bunkers that our deepest bunker busters can't get. They've got enough entertainment. They've got enough food. I think they even have prostitutes down there. Enough basically to keep them quite happy under the ground for at least 6 months, right? There's no way we're getting these. These are the elite Republican Guard. And all of a sudden we send a couple of helicopters over and they all come rushing out. And basically you've got things where like 3-star major generals are running up and surrendering to a remote controlled helicopter with a camera on it and stuff like that.
Now, people will not believe that, Neil. They'll go, what a load of rubbish. They fired a beam down at them and they all surrendered. But explain why you think that's absolutely true.
Well, I mean, it was denied for a long time. It came out in an ITN program. And ITN talked about the PSYOP teams were using this thing called Silent Sound. And what it is sub-acoustic. It's sub-aural, so you can't physically hear it, but your brain picks up on it. Now, if you try and find the original document on the ITN website or the archives, it doesn't exist anymore. For some reason, don't know why. You can find lots of reports pertaining to talking about the report, but I can't find the original one. Now, this was invented by a bloke called Oliver Lowry, Dr. Oliver Lowry of Norcross, Georgia, and it's called, it's actually US patent 5159703, and it's called Silent Subliminal Presentation System. And this was, the patent was presented to the Patent Office in October '92. Obviously it was used before that in the Gulf War. And it's basically, this is what the patent says. It's a silent communication system in which non-aural characters in the very low or very high audio frequency range or in the adjacent ultrasonic frequency spectrum or frequency modulated within the desired intelligence are propagated acoustically or vibrationally for inducement into the brain, typically through the use of loudspeakers, earphones or piezoelectric transducers. It's like you get a phone.
So this isn't a microwave weapon then? This is an audio weapon?
Yeah, this is an audio weapon. This modulated carriers may be transmitted directly in real time or be conveniently recorded and stored on mechanical, magnetic or optical media for delayed or repeated transmission to the listener. Now the point about this...
Is this what was used in Iraq?
This was what was allegedly used in Iraq. Now if you go on YouTube and type in Silent Sound used in Iraq, you can...
Silent Sound?
Yeah. There is a video of a Humvee or similar type vehicle going around with speakers on the back, and it keeps banging out the same. It basically says give up, 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 give up. That's not the actual one.
A bit like some music we hear today.
Yeah. That's not the actual sort of thing that was used. Again, essentially, it's been denied. What they did was they got onto. What happened was that the Iraqi forces, they destroyed their radio system. So they were going through like a local sort of, like 97.1 FM or whatever. We were able to basically put subliminal signals on that, and also we were hitting them with speakers coming from helicopters in the back of trucks and stuff like that. Now again, this has been denied, but Silent Sounds Inc., which is the company that manufactures this, it's a real company. You go on their website and you can find this fantastic little quote. It says it's only interested in positive emotions, but the military obviously is not that bothered. Now, Edward Tilton, who's the president of Silent Sounds Inc., said this in a letter that you can find on their website, and it's dated December 13th, 1996. All schematics, however, have been classified by the US government, and we are not allowed to reveal the exact details. But we do make tapes and CDs for the German government and even former Soviet Union countries, and this is all done with the permission of the US State Department, of course. This system was used throughout Operation Desert Storm in Iraq quite successfully. So the company that makes the system admits that it was used.
All right then, Neil. Well, that's all we've got time for this week, and we are going to do another show next week, and we're going to discuss how music can control people's minds. But until then, thanks very much indeed, Neil. And it just remains for me to say, believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. I'm Richard D. Hall. Good night.